What's up, Thrashers, and welcome back once again to the Thrash Maniac 99 YouTube channel, and I am back with yet another CD collection update for you guys. And this is actually going to be kind of a hefty stack because pretty much almost every single CD I got in this stack is all the stuff that I ordered from excuse me, from Black Friday sales, really except for the last two that I'm going to show were from Black Friday shopping. So I did some scouring around Relapse Records, MNRK Heavy, and Metal Blade Records, and got my hands on quite a few good things here. So without further ado, well, before I get there, as of recording this video, it's the day after Christmas. I hope everybody had a really good Christmas or holidays, what have you. But without further ado, let's get into it. So we kick things off with Amon Amarth versus the World. So I've been needing to get more Amon Amarth albums in my collection. If I recall, I believe this is album number 4 or 5. I forget. But yeah, this one I got pretty cheap, and this is actually a double disc version that comes with live performance from 2008. So this was actually a reissue of the album, and it was reissued in 2009. But yeah, the big standout on this album is the opening track, Death and Fire. That's like one of the band's biggest songs. But also the title track, Down the Slopes of Death, Bloodshed, 1,000 Years of Oppression, and the closer, And the World Will Soon the World Will Cease to Be. Like some really cool stuff right here. And this was back during like the more heavier days of Amon Amarth, but still being very much a melodic death metal band. But yeah, I've been needing to get more Amon Amarth in the collection. Hopefully this will be the start of me getting some more. So, versus the World. Next up, we have Amorphis Rarities 1991 to 2001. So this is actually the latest compilation that came out this year from Relapse Records, and it's primarily a lot of deep cuts and like unreleased stuff from their first 10 years, roughly. Like you get stuff from their early days, like different versions of tracks like Misery Path and Vulgar and Necrolatry. Yeah, I can't even fucking say it. But then you also get some like different versions of songs from later on when they shifted their sound, like Light My Fire, The Brother Slayer, Levitation, Northern Lights. Yeah, and these are pretty cool versions of these songs, and then also perhaps there's some stuff on here that was unreleased for Amorphis fans. So if you are a diehard Amorphis fan and you're looking to get like everything they've done in terms of not only studio albums and EPs, but also some stuff that was never released in the past, definitely get this. This is actually some really cool deep cuts of the past of one of the greats. Alright, next up we have Black Crown Initiate, The Wreckage of Stars. This is the debut album from this Pennsylvania progressive death metal band that I've been a big fan of since their second album, Selves We Cannot Forgive, which, spoiler alert, I might be talking about this band in my most anticipated albums of 2025 video. But this was where it all started in terms of studio output. And yeah, this was a monstrous, massive debut. I mean, tracks like The Malignant, The Fractured One, the title track, but the opening track, A Great Mistake, is basically like the perfect song to describe Black Crown Initiate. It's got like heavy chugs, awesome riffs, some great proggy melodies, awesome growling vocals, acoustic guitars, but also some awesome clean vocals from Andy Thomas, the guitarist, in which it kind of gives this band a bit of like a Mastodon vibe, which there are riffs on here and melodies on here that definitely harken back to Mastodon, but also a lot of Opeth on here. Maybe even a little bit of Cynic, little bits of Decapitated. It's basically everything about progressive death metal that people should really love. So I would say the best bands, if you're not familiar with this band, if you're a big fan of Mastodon, Opeth, I would even dare say Ancients, but also like Nea Blivascaris, Rivers of Nile, Obscura, bands along those lines. Definitely check this out. Alright, and almost dropped a bunch. So now we have a pair from Creeping Death. We have their debut album, Wretched Illusions, and their EP, The Edge of Existence. I was a pretty big fan of their previous album, Boundless Domain, that came out last year. In fact, I think that made my year-end list in 2023. And I thought, okay, I should check out more from these guys. So I went back and I got these two, and while I haven't checked them out just yet, I can definitely say that I see why people love this band. Like, from what I have heard from Creeping Death here, basically hardcore-inspired death metal done right, where it doesn't sacrifice the death metal aspect of, like, speedy moments, awesome chugs, brutal vocals, and everything in between. So, yeah, while I still need to listen to these in full, I'm glad I got them, and maybe someday, if I ever decide to do ranking of Creeping Death once their catalog gets more substantial, we'll talk more in depth. Alright, next up we have Crowbar, self-titled. This is the second album from this legendary New Orleans sludge metal band. Again, I've been needing to get more Crowbar in the collection, and this was one of the ones I was going for, but couldn't find for whatever reason. And then when I saw MNRK Heavy had their Black Friday sale, and I saw this was on there, I'm like, fuck yeah, I'll get it. And I'm glad, because this is a classic sludge album. I mean, all I had I gave: Existence is Punishment, Self-Inflicted, High Rate Extinction. Just dark, somber lyrics, but with like a heavy, punky, hardcore, and doom aspect going on. And of course, you know, this was produced by Phil Anselmo, and also, I mean, riff wizard Kirk Winstein. Just awesome. So I still, as far as Crowbar albums, I absolutely need to get in the future. I absolutely feel like I need to get the debut, Obedience Through Suffering, Broken Glass, and I think that might be it, unless I want to be a completionist and get everything. But yeah, I'm glad I got the classic self-titled Crowbar. This is awesome. Next up we have the Dillinger Escape Plan, Calculating Infinity. This is the debut album from this New Jersey, I believe, Pennsylvania, somewhere in that range, mathcore / progressive metalcore band. And of course, like, Dillinger, kind of interesting. Like, I got into Dillinger, well, I first heard of them back in 2005 with the song Unretrified, I should say. And this sounds nothing like that song. In fact, this is, like I said, they're almost borderline grindcore at times on air because of how fast and spastic it gets in the blast beats. But yeah, I mean, the big selling point of this album to me is the song 43% Burnt. That's just mayhemic, chaotic insanity. Like, absolute insanity. And this was the only full length with Dimitri, I forget his last name, how you say it, but their original vocalist before they went with Greg Pucascio to, I probably fucked up that name, but when he replaced Dimitri on vocals after Mike Patton had a brief stint in the band with Irony is a Dead Scene. But yeah, I've been needing to get some Dillinger in the collection, but I'm kind of picky about them. I definitely will end up getting their last album, Disassociation, because I thought that was a great album. But yeah, Dillinger Escape Plan, Calculating Infinity, a classic late 90s metalcore / grindcore / prog album. It's kind of hard to describe them, but yeah, Dillinger. Alright, next up, this was actually a bit of a surprise, and that's Dodheimsgard with Black Medium Current. This is the latest album from this Norwegian, I don't know how you could really describe them. I guess like avant-garde metal, because they're just all over the place. Like, there's black metal, there's folk, there's industrial, even little hints of prog. It's just all over the map. And this album, I would argue, despite, again, not really checked it out yet, but I heard so many people talk about this album, and I actually am looking forward to, whenever I can, check it out and then maybe give a full opinion about it at a later time. That's typically a theme with me. It's like, I have so much I still need to catch up on listening-wise, but also keep up with what's coming up. It's difficult. It's absolutely difficult. So, but yeah, I heard a lot of buzz about this, and when I get a chance to actually listening to it, I will probably enjoy it, so we shall see. One thing I do know about this band is that this band was originally formed by Fenris from Darkthrone. So that was enough to get me hyped about this. And this was actually a Christmas gift from former Horseman podcast host Hannah Klein. So thank you, Hannah, once again. Yeah, this is pretty cool. Alright, next up we have Exhumed, All Guts, No Glory. This is the... I'm trying to think in the timeline. I think 4th album from this California death metal / death grind band. Yeah, this was the only full length I was missing from Exhumed. I have all the other albums, and I needed to get this one to complete it, and I'm glad I finally got it at a good price. But yeah, Exhumed, awesome, dare I say underrated band. If you love almost every era of Carcass, then you should definitely like Exhumed. And this was their big comeback album after taking a long break between the Anatomy is Destiny, which was 2004, and this was 2011. So it was a 7-year gap between full lengths. I know there was the Garage Days covers album in 2005, but I don't count that. So yeah, this is pretty fucking killer shit right here, and kind of really kickstarted Exhumed's current run going, where they just keep on chugging along and putting out some awesome stuff. And it all began with this in terms of their comeback. So definitely check it out if you love Exhumed. Then I think you should probably already have this. It took me a while to get it, but I finally got it. Alright, we have yet another pair. We have a pair from High on Fire. We have Snakes for the Divine and Luminiferous. So, I believe now, I think there was an album released in between these two, but I almost have all of the recent High on Fire material, because I have the new one, which I should have made my year-end list, but I ran out of room, so that's an honorable mention, the new High on Fire, and then also Electric Messiah, which I really liked. But I need to get some more High on Fire, because I do love me some Matt Pike. Now, Snakes for the Divine, I have heard a lot of people say that this is like their favorite High on Fire album. Once I get a chance, I'll give you my thoughts on it, maybe on Instagram or something like that. And then the same goes for Luminiferous in terms of needing to check it out in full. But it's definitely between these two. I hear from a lot of people saying, like, what's the best High on Fire album? It's definitely between these two. So I'll have to listen to them back to back and give you my pick. But yeah, I'm glad to start getting more High on Fire. But again, I gotta play catch up with so much stuff I have. It's just hard to get to everything. Same goes for the next album, which is Intronaut, Fluid Existential Inversions. This is the latest album from this progressive post-metal band. This is a band I have been needing to check out for a while, considering I hear they get compared a lot to bands like Mastodon and Tool, and I can definitely get behind bands that sound similar to both. Again, not checked it out yet, but I'm glad that I got it, because from what I know of Intronaut, I can definitely respect what they do. But I still need to take the time to actually dive headfirst into their stuff, starting with this. But I heard from a lot of people this was some pretty good stuff right here, and of course, me being a big fan of prog, I was like, I can't say no to this, and also I've been needing to, check out Intronaut for a good long while. So, happy to have some Intronaut. Next up, we have Inverloch, Distance Collapsed. This is the lone studio full-length, I think, from this Australian death doom band. Essentially a continuation of the previous band before Inverloch, Disembowelment, which I'm still trying to find a good cheap copy of Transcendence into the Peripheral, because that's a quintessential Death Doom. But this is definitely a close second in terms of their legacy. But again, well, that's according to fans. Again, I still need to take the time to actually listen to it. But if it's anything like the Lone Disembowelment album, then I'm probably going to dig it. So, yeah, I'm happy I found this. I wonder if this band's going to put out anything new, because I would definitely review it. But yeah, Inverloch, Distance Collapsed. Alright, next up, we have Iotunn, Access All Worlds, the debut album from this Danish progressive melodic death metal band. Of course, I hyped the shit up out of Kinship, the new one, and I still think that's a fantastic album. And I kept saying I had not listened to Access All Worlds or had it yet. Finally got it, and I've gotten through almost all of it. I still need to get to the final couple of songs. But from what I have listened to thus far off of this is brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Like, kind of met my expectations of what I was going to hear. Granted, I would say this one's a little more melodic than Kinship. Even though Kinship's super melodic, I think it sounds a bit heavier. And also this with having Fredrik Nordstrom as producer, definitely you can tell it's a Fredrik Nordstrom production. But yeah, these songs thus far have been killer. Like Voyage of the Gargani one, the title track, the Tower of Cosmic Nility. I heard that was like the biggest, the big song that kind of put them on the map, and I can certainly see why. I still need to listen to the Weaver System and Safe Across the Endless Night, and then I'll have officially gone through, well, apart from their early EP or demos, all of Iotunn. I wonder if their early stuff's out there on physical media, because I'd like to check it out back when they were a little more on the power metal side. But yeah, Iotunn, Access All Worlds, finally got it, and from what I've heard, it's phenomenal. Alright, and then we have yet another pair here, this time from Khemmis. We have, I think this is their second album, Hunted, and their third album, Desolation. So, I've been needing to check out more Khemmis, because I've only checked out their last album in 2021, which I thought was fantastic. Again, not yet checked these out, because I've only just gotten these recently, but if it's anything like their recent album, then I'm definitely going to be a big fan. I was a pretty big fan of their new album. But yeah, and both of these on $20 spin, and these are OG Digipack copies. So now I think the only Khemmis album I'm missing is the debut. And then I would have pretty much everything. So yeah, I'm happy to have finally gotten some more Khemmis. And also these were gifts from Horror Master, aka Ricky. So thank you once again. I definitely need to check these out. So yeah. Okay, and then we have yet another pair that I still have yet to listen to in full, and that is Neurosis. We have Through Silver and Blood and Times of Grace. So yeah, Neurosis is one of those bands I've listened to in passing, and that's because post-metal, it's not necessarily my bag, but if bands do it well, then I can get behind it, like Neurosis. I mean, if Ulcerate can incorporate a little Neurosis into their music, maybe I should listen to the source material, and that's Neurosis. Like I said, I've heard them in passing, and I've liked what I've heard. Still need to take the time to listen to these two in full, but I have heard these are two classic post-metal albums, especially 90s post-metal, and yeah, just atmospheric, sludgy, doomy, punky, yeah. Scott Kelly, despite what you might say about him recently, he was a mastermind back in his day. So yeah, Neurosis. Next up we have The Obsessed, self-titled. This is the debut album from this legendary doom metal / stoner metal band. Of course, Scott Wino Weinrich, legend in the world of doom, and this was where it all started for him, because this was recorded in '85, but it wasn't released until 1990 once they got a label deal, and this is a Relapse reissue that comes with their Concrete Cancer demo and bonus tracks from a live show in '85. But yeah, I was a pretty big fan of the opening and closing tracks, Tombstone, Highway, and River of Soul, those are really catchy, dark, doomy songs that have a little bit of a classic metal sensibility to it. But yeah, if you love wino, you should already have this. I should have had this a long time ago. But then again, I'm missing even like the classic St. Vitus stuff with wino, like Born Too Late in particular. But yeah, this is some awesome, awesome doom right here from one of the early pioneers here in America. Definitely check it out if you haven't. Next up, we have Overkill Ironbound. I forget what number of album this is, but this was 2010, and really the album that kind of got Overkill back on the map in terms of consistency, because ever since this album, they've been on a tear. And I've been looking for this album for God knows how long, finally got it cheap, and I'm happy. I mean, In Vain, Killing for a Living, Endless War, the title track, at least from what I've heard of those tracks, is killer. Absolutely killer. Granted, I've been, like, slacking on listening to the entire thing, but then again, I slack a lot because I'm always doing other stuff. But once, because, well, I'm going to have to listen to it eventually because I'm going to be ranking Overkill next October, and I'm probably going to be speaking highly about this album in particular. So yeah, Ironbound. Next up, we have Revocation, Teratogenesis. This is an EP compilation of a lot of stuff that Revocation have done, like mainly some of their demo stuff, as well as an EP on here, but also 4 covers. 4 cover songs. I forget who did Death in Vain. Oh, that was Exhorder. I should have known that. They cover Exhorder's Death in Vain, Death Pulled a Plug, Faith No More's Surprise You're Dead, and Metallica Dyer's Eve. Still need to listen to those, but I bet they probably did a pretty solid job. I'd be curious to hear how they did Surprise You're Dead, since that's like a triplet groovy, bouncy song. But yeah, it's going to be interesting. But yeah, I'm continuing to try and get everything Revocation, since I've been a big fan of theirs since 2014, but I've not really gone back to their old stuff. But I'm glad to have this. Next up, we have Rotting Christ, Kata, Daimona, Eaytoy. I probably butchered that, but this was 2013 when this came out, and yeah, this was, I guess, to some people, kind of the birth of the modern era of Rotting Christ, where it's a little bit more bombastic, but still pretty heavy, but more on the catchy side. And from what I know about this album, this is more of a blackened death metal album rather than black metal or mellow death or death doom or even gothic metal. So this one I feel kind of stands out to a lot of fans. But again, I have to check it out because, again, I'm a fucking slacker. So there you go. Next up, we have Suffocation, Despise the Sun. This is the second EP from these New York brutal death, tech death legends. Yeah, this is a different cover art because this was a reissue on Relapse in 2018. And yeah, it's like red. It's not like the original cover on Vulture Records. But yeah, this EP, I know I ranked it a little bit low, but I still like it, particularly Funeral Inception. That song is killer. And this was, I think, prior to 2005, the last thing Scott Burns ever produced until briefly in 2005 and then briefly with To the Dirt, or Till the Dirt. So, yeah, I'm getting closer to completing the Suffocation catalog. So, yeah. So, I think I'm now only missing Blood Oath, which I know I ranked that last, but I don't think it's a bad album. I think it's still good, just the production suffers. But yeah, Suffocation. Next up, we have Trouble, Run Into the Light. This is the third album from this legendary Chicago doom metal legend. And yeah, I've been needing to get more of the early Trouble material. I still need to get Psalm 9 and their self-titled album. But yeah, this is just some real somber yet catchy and old school metal and bordering on thrash doom, like the Misery Shows, the title track, Peace of Mind. There's some cool stuff on here, absolutely, but I will say it's probably weaker in comparison to the first two albums. But, yeah, and again, rest in peace, Eric Wagner. But I'm happy to get some more Trouble in the collection. Next up, we have one I picked up randomly at an antique mall, Violence, Oppressing the Masses. This is the second full-length from these Bay Area thrash metal legends, and of course, it's Violence. Despite, you know, Sean Killian not having the best vocals in thrash, but of course you do have, like, Rob Flynn riffs, which I can respect his riff writing and songwriting at times. I'm not going to dive into that rabbit hole. That's a story for another time. But, yeah, this is still some awesome thrash. Like, I Prophet, the opening track, is killer. World in a World is pretty fucking fun. So, yeah, I really don't feel like I need to talk much more on this album. It's an awesome follow-up to Eternal Nightmare. What more can you ask? But that's not all. That might be it for the stack. But I got one final thing to show you. So I'm not going to go too in-depth about the album itself because I've already reviewed it, and it was an awesome album that made my year-end list, but I wanted to get the special edition. The limited edition CD Blu-ray earbook of Blood Incantation Absolute Elsewhere. So yeah, this cost me a little bit more than I was expecting. It was like $70 on Discogs. Because I saw Century Media, they sold out, but I wanted to get it because this is pretty cool. It's the size of a vinyl, and, you know, it's really cool packaging. It's like you know, a book, because, you know, it comes with a booklet, essentially, of, like, interviews with the band about the album, but also forwarded by Ross Dolan from Immolation. And of course you get like some really cool art, like this sci-fi painting, I think from the 70s, maybe earlier. And then of course, you know, like pictures of the band recording and playing live. And then of course the creme de la creme, the final section where you get 3 CDs and a Blu-ray. You get the full album, Absolute Elsewhere here, the ambient soundtrack for this, and then here's the Luminescent Bridge album, or EP, single, what have you, of the 2 songs from last year. And then the Blu-ray, which has like Atmos or Dolby Atmos and a 5.1 mix of the album, and the making of documentary, which I've watched. It's pretty good, and this soundtrack is the soundtrack to the documentary, but it's like ambient, kind of like continuation of Time Wave Zero. But yeah, this is some awesome stuff right here. Of course, the album itself is phenomenal, but it ended up as number 2 on my year-end list. But still awesome. I still listen to it to this day. Killer. Absolutely killer. And that does it for this collection update. I know I didn't go in depth on a lot of these albums because, again, I'm a slacker. I need to listen to what I buy, but I get caught up in so much other shit, and that's just the way it is. But regardless, what's your guys' favorite album out of everything I showed off this time around? Let me know in the comments below. Still got a couple more videos left to pump out. I gotta get released the response to the bad metal albums video, and then do my most anticipated albums of 2025 video. But until next time, keep your horns high and your dreams wet.